seed of the mushroom. And the part of the mushroom that we can see is the part of the mushroom used to spread the seed. It is the phallic portion of the mushroom. The actual body of the mushroom is the mycelium that is below the ground and attaching itself to the roots of the tree. So the mushroom attaches itself to the roots of the tree, and it cannot live without this tree. These mushrooms live in a symbiotic, mycorrhizal symbiotic relationship with the tree. And they help the tree, they feed the tree nutrients, and the tree feeds them nutrients. So they kind of live in harmony together. So these mushrooms are seen as the fruiting body of the tree. Just as nature needs a tree to grow apples, nature also needs a tree to grow these mushrooms. And just as an apple is something that is used by nature to spread a seed, so is the mushroom. So we see three stages of the mushroom's growth cycle here, and the mushroom appears to be going through an egg stage. A lot of mushrooms do this. The amanita is one of them. It appears to look like an egg in this stage of growth, and it's white, and on the right here you see the red cap of the mushroom peering through. And what it is breaking through is called the universal veil. So the universal veil tears to expose the red cap of the mushroom. And it is a universal veil. It covers the entire mushroom. The universal veil covers the entire mushroom. So as the veil tears, as the red mushroom cap gets bigger and bigger, the veil peels itself across the top of the mushroom, and it leaves these remnants, these veil remnants that leave white spots on the mushroom. So now this is the male portion of the mushroom. These stages of growth of the mushroom are considered male phallic, as you see the mushroom getting stronger and stronger. So the mushroom cap is now completely outside the veil of the mushroom, and the veil of the mushroom has now attached itself to the rim of the cap of the mushroom, and it is concealing the gills of the mushroom. And as the mushroom cap expands further and further and further, this universal veil cannot stretch any further, and it begins to tear, and this is seen as the circumcision of the mushroom.
As the mushroom expands further, the universal veil separates itself completely from the underside of the cap, falls, and hangs on the stalk or stipe of the mushroom like a skirt. The amanita will continue to grow upward, flattening itself into a small table. One may wish to keep in mind that the Knights of the Round Table were, or are, if these knights ever evolved into the Knights Templars, the keepers and protectors of the Holy Grail. This is important to remember because the next stage in the growth cycle of this mushroom is the cup or grail stage. The mushroom cap continues to turn upward, and the cap becomes somewhat of a cup or chalice and will often hold the morning dew or rain. When the morning dew collects in the cup of the upturned mushroom cap, some of the psychedelic substances are drawn out of the mushroom and into the water. Consequently, the water is colored red like blood. Some of this bright red pigment from the mushroom's cap bleeds into the water. This, among other things, will fade the mushroom from a bright red into an orange-like or golden color. Although the psychedelic effects would not be nearly as intense as a belly full of mushrooms, one could literally take this golden-colored chalice-shaped mushroom and drink the blood of Jesus from the Holy Grail. Not only is this mushroom the literal Holy Grail, it is also the mythological phoenix. The phoenix is born from its ashes, but it will never live to leave its nest, for as it lifts its wings in attempt to fly, it bursts into flames and engulfs itself, leaving nothing behind but its own ashes, and the cycle continues. Here are the eggs in the nest, the colorful red eggs of the phoenix. The amanita resembles a red bird with wings. As the phoenix lifts its wings in attempt to fly, it bursts into flames and engulfs itself. As the fungus quickly decomposes, it leaves nothing behind but its own ashes, the millions of mushroom spores, and the hair-like mycelia attached to the roots of the tree that grow underground. And as the cycle continues, as the mushroom spores serve as the seed of the mushroom, seemingly planting itself in the same location over and over.
And these stories were created to pass this type of knowledge down. Easter is a great example of this. The Easter egg hunt is a mushroom hunt. You find the correct mushroom. The way of identifying the mushroom. Find us the correct mushroom and we'll get you a treat. And who better to go hunting these mushrooms, these colorful little egg-like mushrooms, or the big holy grail type mushrooms? Who better to go find these mushrooms than little kids who can crawl up underneath these trees rather than some big clumsy adult? These mushrooms have a symbiotic relationship with these trees. Conifer trees. They love conifer trees. Pine trees. They flourish under pine trees. And this mushroom is the hidden mushroom. Hidden eggs. You can see here this big bright red mushroom is obvious on the screen, but just below it is one that's hidden. So you have to have a good eye. Depending on the season and depending on the area, these mushrooms can be gold as well. So they are the golden egg. We see these mushrooms reflected in our Easter cards as well. Kind Easter wishes, as the gnome is leaning upon the mushroom with his sacred text or his recipe book open. So we pass this knowledge down to our children. We initiate the children. So like Santa Claus, who dresses in red and white, the shaman will dress in the colors of their sacred plants. And the Amanita-using shaman will dress in the red and white colors of the Amanita muscaria. And here we see the Pope dressing in something that looks quite a bit like the Amanita mushroom, and the snow adds a little extra effect, putting the white dots on the red cap. But popes and cardinals all throughout history have dressed just like this Amanita muscaria mushroom.
This figure identifies the Virgin Mary in the Dormition icon as Amanita form. Notice the red cap, the skirt-like wrap over the shoulders, and the hash marks at the bottom. We'd like to discuss Santa Claus again for a moment. This mysterious old man somehow got himself intertwined into the Christian celebrations of the birth of their deity. In the Middle Ages, Santa was a shaman, and you can easily trace many similarities between the shamans of the past into our Christmas traditions of today. A shaman is, in many ways, similar to what we more commonly refer to in America as a medicine man. You can often find chimney sweeps on old holiday postcards holding the Amanita muscaria mushroom. This is but a subtle hint to the connection of someone with the Amanita mushroom and a chimney. The ancient shamans of Siberia would go to the houses, huts, or yurts of the people in the community in celebration of the winter solstice and bring them these pre-dried mushrooms and often guide them through the experience. It was their yearly tradition. If the main door to the yurt was snowed over, which they often were during the wintertime, it is said that the shaman would enter symbolically through the secondary entrance. This just so happens to be the smoke hole in the roof or the chimney. The shaman, dressing in red and white and carrying a huge bag full of Amanita muscaria mushrooms that he had picked and dried during the previous season, enough for an entire community, would go door to door, bartering and selling his dried mushrooms. How would the shaman travel? He used a sleigh, and the animals pulling the sleigh were not dogs or horses. The Siberian shaman used caribou, also known as reindeer, as they were indigenous to Siberia. Amanita muscaria mushrooms go through a chemical process called decarboxylation as they dry. We'll talk more about this chemical process in a minute, but they also go through a physical process when they dry. They get lighter. They retain much of their potency when they are dried, and in fact, chemically speaking, they get stronger. And this allows the shaman to consume more than if the mushrooms were wet and heavy. Even to this day, it is a common practice for people to stack their mushrooms in socks and hang them over the fireplace overnight to dry them out. But imagine that you're in a pine forest hunting mushrooms for your entire community. These mushrooms can grow to be quite large, and the sack that you use to carry the mushrooms in would get quite heavy. But knowing that these mushrooms should be dried before ceremonial ingestion, it would be wise to dry them out before carrying them home. This would allow you to carry more, and it would keep the mushrooms on the bottom of the sack from being crushed by the weight of the others. One good way to dry the mushrooms, as you continue to hunt for more, is to select a tree in a central location and use its boughs as a basket to hold your freshly picked mushrooms, drying them in the sun as you search for more. This would look a lot like a decorated Christmas tree. And as we mentioned, the red and white mushroom Christmas ornaments are some of the oldest ornaments you can find.
Here's for just a moment and discuss the fountains of living water, also known as the fountain of youth. This ties back to the death and the rebirth experience, where the shaman will train for death with the same determination as a boxer would train for a fight. After all, one cannot conquer death without training for such an event. We mentioned that the mushroom should be dried before consumption, but drying the mushroom is only half of this ceremonial process. Drying the mushroom will indeed allow one to consume more of the active ingredients, but in order to evoke the shamanic death and rebirth experience, the shamans will often consume their urine after ingesting the mushroom. This is done because the urine is now infused with the psychedelic ibotenic acid and mucimol, and anyone who consumes this laced urine will have the psychedelic experience. The very thought of drinking your own urine is indeed a turnoff, especially in our society today. But for the shaman growing up around these things, this was a common practice. And urine can actually be good for you. I'm not going to go into the details here, but the results for an internet search for urine therapy might surprise you. Here's the homunculus again, with a little man urinating into the water fountain, and fountains do not use fresh water, and consequently he is recycling his water, and this is a huge key for those who are seeking the Holy Grail. And this leads us directly into the twin fountains and two waters. Two different kinds of water. Here's the alchemical depiction of Mount Helicon and the twin fountains atop a mushroom-shaped hill. This displays the tree of life next to the phallic-shaped fountain with twin spouts. And on either side of the phallic obelisk at the Vatican are twin fountains. Both of these fountains resemble the Amanita mushroom in both the canopy stage and the Holy Grail stage of growth. hidden in plain sight.